We are back with the journey to more. This is the only place and space for the whole entrepreneurial mind community, right? It's about us starting businesses, it's about us being leaders, and it's about us being well balanced while doing things that are solutions oriented and helping other people. Whether you are in the marketplace or in a corporate setting, you have to have an entrepreneurial mind. And so today, me. I'm here. I'm the attorney to the entrepreneurs, the podcasters, the speakers, everything else to make sure that their brand, business, and profits are protected through contracts, copyrights, and trademarks. But today, y'all, we have a special guest. I would try and introduce her, but I'm not going to do her justice. And she's going to really help us walk through what it means to really build your brand and your money through marketing. Marci, what do you have to tell the people about you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Marci Bryant, and I am a B2B digital strategist. The name of my company is Sync Digital Agency, which stands for Secure Your Next Customer. And that's exactly what I do, help you secure your next customer by synchronizing your marketing, sales, and service teams in digital spaces with more ease.
Y'all, she really told us that quick. You didn't get it, you just gonna press rewind. But I want to jump in right here because somebody's gonna be like, B2B, what's B2B?
Right.
So can you explain what B2B is?
Yes, so B2B is business to business, and that is when your business sells directly to other businesses who usually end up selling your business or selling your product or some variation of your product to the end user, or the product that you sell provides them something that they need to provide a product to the end user, which is different from business to consumer.
So we have B2B. She teaching y'all already. B2B and B2C, right? So business to consumer, direct to consumer, and business to directly to business. And then that business sells it to the consumer. And somebody's going to be like, well, I don't have anything that I can sell directly to a business. Go on ahead. I have a legal perspective on enlightening them, but give
Yeah.
us the marketing and sales perspective on enlightening them.
So, one of the things that I really focus on is helping businesses figure out if they're business to consumer, is how to create a business to business strategy so that they can expand their income earning potential. So, for instance, if you have, let's say, a lipstick that you have been trying to sell one person at a time at pop ups and vendor booths, how about connecting with a beauty supply or hair salons or makeup artists, and you sell their product to those people who have freestanding buildings or websites, and you sell that to them at a wholesale rate, and then they can sell it at a markup.
Okay, so you help the product based people. What about most
Services
of us who
too.
are, I know you got it because I'm like
Yeah,
licensing, but
yeah.
talk to us about those that sell services.
All right, so it's a very similar process. So if you sell services, for instance, if let's say you do taxes and you are used to doing taxes individually for people, but you know how to help business owners. Maybe you can work with associations that have accountants and get maybe 100 accountants secured for you at once through this association, and then you can give a particular rate for mass volume. And that way you've got so many clients secured from one place. So the main point, whether it's product or service, is to make sure that you are doing less and reaching more people.
I know some of y'all are already probably going to our website right now. Like, wait a minute, I've been out here trying to nickel and dime with Sharon, Dante, and everybody else, and I really needed to be going to Google, Apple, and all the other places like that. I think that is very, very, very enlightening what you just shared, and
Thank you.
I want to kind of take us back because so many times I see business owners get so excited about the sales and the money and what they want to
Mhm.
do. But in order for you to really do that well, you have to have a strong brand. So, how do you help the businesses that may come to you that have not established a brand quite yet?
So, in my framework, the Foray framework, the very first thing that I do is work on analysis. And I look at things like what is the industry looking like? What is the environment looking like? Their competitors? What's actually going on in the market from a variety of perspectives? And it's hard to figure out where you go unless you know where everybody else goes first. Now, you can bump somebody else out of their lane, you can do something similar to someone else better, but really, when it boils down to it, when all things are similar, the main differentiator is the customer experience. Customers like to hear personality, but really it boils down to what can you do for them and how are you going to treat them while you're doing it and how is that going to make them feel?
Mm. Treatment, feelings. That stood out to me. And it's something that's really important to me as an individual, and it's important for me as a business owner. But what happens? How do you navigate that as the transformation strategist that you are? Um, when the customer will never be happy. And I think this works for professionals too, because your
Mhm.
coworker just may never be happy. How do you navigate that?
Well, the most important thing is you have to know who your ideal customers are. Because if you're doing everything that you have promised to do and you are listening to customer feedback regularly, taking that into consideration and evolving your business based on the people that you're doing business with, there's always going to be somebody that's unhappy. And that might not be your customer. But if you know that that's your target customer, they've done business with you in the past, or maybe it's their first time doing business with you and there was just a part of it that didn't necessarily work right, then it's only up to you to take that into consideration and see what you can reiterate in your business. Now, there's a lot of feedback that you get that's good and some stuff that just doesn't fit. You can't please everybody and you got to take your wins and losses. But even when it's not a good fit, you can still be able to thank them for the feedback, let them know what you're doing instead, and then try to bridge the gap somewhere in some type of compromise, especially if that customer is valuable to you.
Yeah, yeah. I think something that you just hit on, if the customer is valuable for you. And I want to say, like here in the I am community, that we all should be thinking that every person that we interact with is valuable. And so we want to have that love approach with them.
Mhm,
And I also want to pull this from a legal perspective too. This is the reason why you have to have contracts in place that
mhm,
are drafted from an attorney, because you want to make sure that your attorney has thought through all of these little nuances. So when that person who just can't be pleased shows up, your contract is already able to set you up to be able to serve them well, but also have the rules of engagement for how your business does business. And I think it's like an untapped part of branding that
mhm.
folks have not really leaned into. Like if you come to a reputable company or someone and you have, a template you found because you done cut some corners, and when you cut corners, you cut your profits. Uh that also weighs in on hurting your brand overall. What are some other ways that you kind of help business owners navigate keeping their brand intact?
Well, throughout my analysis, I make sure I understand what their positioning has been so far, how the industry has evolved, and maybe how their products and or services have evolved. And sometimes brands just need a refresh. Sometimes the industry has shifted. But making sure that the heart of the company is still intact. So, for instance, there was a company that had two individual owners and they sold it to like a VC firm. And there was a lot of difficulty using the same techniques that the owners previously used because they had all these personal relationships, but there was no way that they could figure out how to turn it into a digital space. The brand was featured around the two owners instead of the actual business. And so one of the things that I did was help them refocus the brand around the actual business and what it provides instead of the actual people that were in charge of it. Policies last longer than people do.
Hold on. You don't skate over that like that. And I'm sorry, I'm so dramatic. They used to it. um you can't skate over that. Like, policies last longer than people do. Break that down for us even more.
Sure, two people owned a business. They sold it. They thought they had everything they needed until they tried to continue doing business, but they couldn't do business the same way because those relationships weren't there. And so they call that like the schmoozing, right? But how do you turn schmoozing into an actual process? And really, all it's about is relationship building. And when you can do that in a digital space, when you've really thought about the elements of relationship building, a lot of it digitally has to do with media, video, content. So you think about, what do you want them to feel? What are all the most important things that you need to tell them at different phases of awareness and different phases of the customer journey? And those are the things that you build into the customer experience with things like emails, landing pages, forms, webinars, trainings, and ads.
She giving everybody so much, because even in that last sentence of what you just brought out, you talking about at the awareness phase, at the attraction phase. I don't know what you call that last phase. I call it attainment in my world. But you're breaking things down to a sense of, like, most people focus on branding at the attainment stage or at the conversion stage. But what matters most, especially because if you are a visionary, you have to understand that it might be more profitable for you to sell your business one day. And
Yeah.
so if you don't have that process in place, or you don't have that brand identity in place at the awareness and attraction stage, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot later on, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, and one thing I like to add to that is, when you don't have it properly constructed and well understood among all your customer facing teams, then you give everybody permission to implement it their own way. And that is the recipe for disaster.
Listen, are you out here giving people permission to just go willy nilly in your business? That's what you said.
With your brand, yeah, everybody's get their own remix, and no matter who you talk to, it's always a different story. And one of the main things that I do is help to alleviate that problem.
So talk to us about how you go in, and I know you can't give us, low level stuff, but just high level. How do you help a business owner that's just like, I'm doing well, I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm close to seven figures. Why do I need processes? Why do I need to even care about this stuff?
If you've gotten it almost seven figures without processes, you're a unicorn. So congratulations. Pat yourself on your horn. That's amazing. However, if you're doing it without processes, imagine how much more you can do it with processes. If you've done it by yourself up to seven figures, imagine what might be like to add seven people to your team that can do it the same way that you do. That's what processes do, so that you don't have to do the work.
So you're telling me that a process can help me multiply my profits and actually allow me to be a CEO rather than a worker in my business?
Yes, but not just any process, a process that helps you to recreate the customer experience in digital spaces. So when COVID came out, some industries, entire industries and some businesses shut down because they didn't understand how to do business in digital spaces. I was around in 2008 when there was a recession, and people didn't know. I was selling yellow pages. People didn't know if their business would still be around when the book came out. So I started selling digital stuff because it took about 2 to 3 weeks to come out and you can reach more people. That was in 2008 and it was an emergency then. In 2021, 2019, 2020, all the time leading up to it, because even though it came to America around 2021, something like that, before then, we saw it in other countries and we were watching it thinking like, it's not going to come to us, but how could it not, right? So the people who were not ready perished. And then you had to think about, people like, we're not spending money in this industry. The money is still being spent, but where? And in that space, in that time, it was being spent in digital spaces. And even though we feel like we're out of that emergency, what about the next one? What about the next version of that emergency that may come back at any given time? Are you ready?
Are you ready? You tapped on, I mean, we know when you speak, you tap on like 5 to 10 things, but I'm gonna pull the one out. I want us to tap into a little bit deeper because so many times people have gotten excited about making offers and making money that they don't understand the foundational knowledge of marketing and even understanding the industry that they're in and the trend for the industry, right? The
Mhm.
other day, I was thinking about Blockbuster, and I'm like, man, if they could have just immediately started to move those movies online, maybe they would be around by now. But they decided to continue with old ways when the industry was radically shifting. So, can you just share a little bit about why knowing what industry you're in and where the industry is going is so important as a CEO?
Actually, you just explained exactly why it's important as a CEO, but I'll go back to when I was at the Yellow Pages. So I was there at a time when it was where the print book was phasing out and Google was really gaining popularity. And even though it was hard for people generally to see the future, luckily my previous job was working in retail sales as a business representative, selling to business people phones like Blackberries and HTC. And I was responsible personally for teaching people how to use the internet on the phone. So I saw the future before I got to this role. And I was able to tell them there's a whole world of people who have the internet in their hands now. It's different than having a book at home. The industry is shifting. And either you can be ahead of the game or you can just be in a mix. Now, I just did a talk a little bit ago at the B2B Marketing Expo, and one of the things I talked about was how relay racing techniques can help you in business, and I talked about leaning forward at the finish line, and that's being an innovator taking risk and how uncomfortable it can be because people call you crazy. They don't think you're making any sense until it works. And then the ones who ridicule you are looking to you as a resource.
From ridicule to resource because you withstood the time where no one believed in the vision but you.
Yes.
And we see that so many times. Like, what would have happened if Jeff Bezos gave up on Amazon? And I remember when Amazon had first come out because that was the way I ordered my books for college. And so all they were like textbooks and things of that nature. And then by the time I went to law school, they had opted into the rental market. So now I could rent the book and give it back. And yeah, being able to just
Thank
really
you so much.
transform the industry. And one of the things you really highlighted for us, and I think I always say this, with the people, the business owners that I work with, you have to balance the now and the later. And so you cannot say, I can't afford to do X, Y, and Z now if your vision for this is that. You can't afford not to have the right foundation. So, what Marci is really laying out for us is we need to have the right foundation for our brand, our marketing, and understanding that the world is only becoming more and more digital. And
That's right.
so more and more digital means you have to get with the program and don't blockbuster your business.
Please don't.
So let's just say if someone is about to blockbuster their business, how do you help them transform? Like, because a lot of it is like limiting beliefs and mindsets. And so, as strategists, and me being an attorney and strategist, we still are not removed from having to do mindset work. So, how do you help business owners in that way?
Well, I do believe in accountability. So sometimes I believe life is the best teacher. If
Mm,
you can really look around at your competitors, at your business, at the industry and the market it, and not see that there's any need for change or at least a reason to look at it, what can I really tell you? The
mhm.
evidence is already right in front of you. So a lot of times the mindset comes from just pointing out the obvious. Now, what you do with it from there is up to you. And I'm not one that is focused on like strong arming people because that doesn't feel good. You have to come to that realization on your own. Now, you can stay on my email list and be nurtured and learn more until you're ready, but I can't make you ready. That's something that you have to come to on your own.
So it's really about being open-minded,
Mhm.
and expanding the way that you may know to do things so that you could receive what is next.
Yeah.
um and that's a life principle. When I talk about the whole entrepreneur and entrepreneurial minds, these are the things that I'm talking about. So just because she might be laying out marketing, sales, and branding principles, she's actually giving you life principles that
Yeah.
you need to carry you forward in life. If you are, an employee, and you have to stay abreast as to what's happening with the company. How many times could an employee have said, okay, let me go look for a job now because I work in X, Y, and Z industry. This is happening now. And that means I need to make my next move for the future. And so, I mean, y'all are hearing what I'm hearing. So it is what it is. And so, based on your opinion and your knowledge, where do you think business owners need to kind of lean in next to understand the future of the digital age?
I think there are a few things. I think focusing on customer experience, which is one of the reasons why I've made the shift. I used to just work on marketing alone, but you have to be aware of your supply chain. And sometimes people don't think that, like, if it's service related, there's a supply chain, but you have to think about if you're good at something, but there's something else attached to what you do that makes the big picture unsuccessful, then you become unsuccessful. And I noticed that even doing marketing, if the marketing and the sales team were not aligned, then the marketing is saying to the sales team, you're a terrible salesperson. And the sales team is saying to the marketing team, you're giving me terrible leads. But the service team is saying, we're getting so many calls, so you both must suck at what you're doing. And so I had to think about what is the overall customer journey. And it turns out that customer journey and customer experience belong under marketing. So if that marketing is not passing through the sales team as a tool for the sales team, if the service team is not being trained on what's being promoted in marketing and what's being promised in sales, and they have no idea what the expectation was for the customer or where they were disappointed. So you have to make sure that everybody's on the same page. They understand the big picture, and those types of things help to increase employee morale, which passes on to the customer, which leads to word of mouth, referrals, more sales, increased lifetime value, and really positive impact in the market, which market is the root word of marketing. So that's where you're trying to go with it. And the other half of that is artificial intelligence, is AI. This stuff is not going away. People think that your job will be replaced by AI. But what will be replaced, you will be replaced with people who know how to manage AI. And all it is an assistant that make things easier for you. You now, some people are trying to get away with like, hey, I wrote my whole blah 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 on Chat GPT, but there's also information that says Google can figure this out. There's software to help you figure out what it is. It's supposed to be a helper. It's not supposed to be the end all be all. It's supposed to be a great starting point so that you don't take as much time with your learning curve. So if you master AI and you focus on customer experience and use AI to support the customer experience, I think that you're on the right trajectory to be successful in the near future with your business.
No, that's so good. And, I just have to jump in here because I literally heard someone say that, yeah, I had ChatGPT write me a contract. And I was like,
Boop, boop, boop.
right. Oh, okay. And so were you able to reference if they put in everything you needed? But it goes to your point around it being an aid and an educator, but you still have to check it and make sure that it is sound knowledge. And I think from another perspective, just making sure that you can copyright and trademark, and that is your own intellectual property when you are using AI tools in your business. And so the great thing about having the two of us here on this platform together is that you get two of the most hidden gems in a business that really is the oil and the gas that people don't think about. Because if you don't have the right legal stuff in place, that engine is going to stop running and you're going to be like, uh-oh. And if you are not pumping marketing, sales, and branding into your business weekly, you're not going to be able to go anywhere, or you're not going to go as far as you need to go. And so these are really tools and principles and things that every business owner needs to lean into to make sure that you don't miss the mark. Because I don't think anybody started a business to fail, in a sense, right? And a lot of times they're failing because they come out here and they're passionate about what they want to do, but they haven't gone to the Marcis of the world to get the understanding and knowledge to know how brand building, marketing, and sales flows through your business. Then on the other side, they put themselves at risk in the legal space because they create things that are not protected.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I would like to add to that, even though I talked about that being a starting point, another thing that you need to be conscious of at AI is what you put into it dictates the quality of what you put out, what you get out of it, just like a regular computer. So in addition to studying how it's a jumping off point, you have to really take some time to study prompt engineering.
Break down prompt engineering for folks, because
So when you look for the jobs, you will see like 300,000 some odd jobs called prompt engineering. And then you might see some basic jobs called like AI content editor. Let me tell you, they're similar. But the difference is how good the person does at it. That's the difference. So you might find a small company that's trying to teach a chatbot a few things, and that is going to be like the AI content writer and editor. But the prompt engineers are coming up with really the scripts of how do you talk to this machine so that it gives you the information, like act as a, give me information, like use this information as background and expand on.
she's dropping knowledge in game right now. So, Marci, is there anything else you feel like we need to know about marketing, sales, and building our brands, which ultimately builds our money?
Yes. So, brand building, how do you know when you've really done a good job of building a brand? People are associating your brand with a product or service, even when it's another company that they're buying. People still call tissue Kleenex. I don't even know what a Q-tip is when somebody else sells it because it's just a Q-tip to me. In the 60s and 70s, it was not a refrigerator, it was a Frigidaire. That's how you know. Even long-lasting brands, people still talk about Winkleman's and Gantos and Hudson's. Long-lasting brands that go beyond the generations, that go beyond the life of the actual business. That's when you know you've got something. I've still got one of my mom's Winkleman sweaters and it still works well. I have not lost a thread, okay?
Listen, and they did not have Winkleman on the West Coast, so I have no idea what you're talking about, but I take it as like a Sears, a JC, or something.
Winkleman's was a store that you could find inside of a mall, and they carry women's clothes, women's sweaters. Are you familiar with Gantos?
No.
Okay, so Gantos was like the women's like after five gear, and you could find more professional gear, and you could find things like your shapewear and your pantyhose at Winkleman's. And if you go to Winkleman's because you want the ones where they're not dry rot, and if something happens, you can always bring them back. Things like that.
So here it is, years later, that brand was stamped inside of you as a child, and now you're years later still carrying on that brand, and that brand is not even as big as it once was. And
It
I think
doesn't exist at all.
it doesn't exist at all.
Yeah.
This is why, I say Marci and I go hand in hand, because if you build that brand, but you don't do the requisite trademark and contract work to protect that brand, then someone is actually able to steal that brand from you. And so if you have a podcast, if you run a business, if you release courses, products, all of that, then you need to make sure that you are seeing myself, an attorney that specializes in trademarks, copyrights, and contracts, to make sure that you are positioned to protect your brand. And then so Marci can come in and help you go through to increase those profits through marketing, sales, and branding. Because if you don't, someone could steal your business, or they could create one similar and stop you from using your business. And you do not want that.
Now, fun fact, after I graduated with my Bachelor of Arts in Advertising, I was trying to figure out my next steps. I strongly considered becoming an IP attorney.
That is a fun fact. Any last comments or thoughts for the audience?
Let's see. Be consistent. Be consistent with your customers, and know that you won't always be perfect, but what you do with those imperfect matters. Those imperfect moments is what matters most. Customers do not expect you to be perfect. They expect you to be accountable. And if you're looking to make money while you sleep, you need automation in your life in order to scale. The internet is your friend. Use it to its fullest ability.
Well, there you have it, Marci. Thank you for coming and pouring into us. We do not take an eye. And I know that people are going to be reaching out to you maybe for years to come, because this is in a digital space.
That's right. The internet is forever, baby.
Yes. So everyone, take care, and we will see you next week.